after minutes of difficulty, we're
We're
here.
here.
We're live. Hello.
We endured, overcame.
Good morning, Schumann. How are you?
Good, doing great, man. How about you, brother?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
Doing
Well,
okay.
I know you're struggling a little bit over there, the technology, but
Yeah, we got it
you made
going
it.
though.
You made it.
We got it going, and I got some coffee to keep me warm.
You got your fingerless gloves too, making sure keeping your palms warm in
Dude,
your cold garage.
it is 31 degrees right now
In the
here.
garage.
So, yep,
Wow.
in my studio. You know,
That's yeah. I don't relate.
I can't relate to you.
I'm nice and warm right now.
Trinity is here, so we can get started now.
Oh,
Excellent.
absolutely. Heck yeah.
Great. So today we're taking a look at Exodus chapter 5. This is the next step in our deliverance story, right? In the story of Exodus. This is the part where it can get disheartening. Because we're going to talk today about how things don't go how you think they're going to go, right?
They do not.
And that happens. It happens a lot. Does it happen to you, Schumann?
Happens all the time. That's how you usually know God's working when when it's not easy, when you have to endure and go through something and push through.
And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times we think, if I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to do, if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm taking those opportunities and I'm stepping up and I am accomplishing what I'm setting out to do, then things will go right. And normally that doesn't happen, right?
Usually, the God of this world gives you things easily. Usually, the God of the Bible has you work for it, not in a sense of like working for salvation, but make you show that you really want something and you want to follow him and you want to, do his will. It's not easy. Life ain't easy when you become one of his, right?
Yeah, I think it's the opposition. So if we move unopposed, there's not much to that story, for one. So if we're talking in a story sort of thing, that this is story wise, this is what makes a story. If someone just goes out to accomplish a goal and they go through and they just accomplish it, that's not a story. That's a vlog, and that's
Mm-hmm.
boring. No one likes to watch vlogs. They just don't.
No.
Just like, oh, this is what I'm doing in my day, and you just go and you do a thing and then you go to bed. Like, that's lame. So story wise, no story has you just move unopposed and just
Mm-hmm.
accomplish your goal. That's
Absolutely.
We don't like those kinds of stories.
No. We have
Maybe
none of those in the
children
Bible.
do, but not adults, not thinking people that are looking for something more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we are in the story. Where we left our heroes, they were leaving the wilderness, they were leaving Midian, and they were on their way, right? We've got Moses, and now we've got another character with us. We've got Aaron with us.
Our brother, our boy.
The brother coming in
Mm-hmm.
to help Moses out. God sends him to help him, and still not totally sure if Moses was making excuses, but for whatever reason, Moses didn't think he could do it himself, or didn't want to do it himself, or
Dude, he's like an 80-year-old man. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to do it, man. Just chilling in Midian with the flock, and then God comes to me and tells me I got to go do something I really don't want to do. I don't blame him. But
that's so funny,
I don't want to do
because
this.
that's what we look back and we don't go like, oh man, Moses was just like a really great shepherd for a long time, just looking after sheep, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you really should have deleted that a long time ago, Trinity, honestly. But the story, how it unfolds, we now have Moses and Aaron moving to Egypt to go and to accomplish the goal. So they're on their way to do what they are supposed to do, right? They encounter a little difficulty, but now they're really on their way. They arrive, and it's funny, we don't get a whole lot of how things took place. Just says that when Moses and Aaron showed up, they went and talked to Pharaoh. So maybe it was a little easier
Cuts right
than
to
they
the
thought
chase,
it's
man.
going to be.
Cuts right to it. It's like one of the movies. It's like a movie where kind of cuts out the scenes, just get you there.
Right. 10 minutes later,
Mm-hmm.
just standing there. Yeah, it's almost like a cut, like a dissolve, and then we're just apparently talking to Pharaoh.
It clearly the time in between those events is not eventful or not fruitful for you to know. So
Yeah, probably just not exciting, right?
yeah. Well, could you imagine how long the Bible would be if every one of those points was written?
All those in
Yeah,
between parts,
yeah. You
and then they
dude.
went, yeah,
Yeah, you read Numbers and it's brutal sometimes. Imagine now reading the Bible as a whole with yeah. So
yeah, it's true, and that's all the fluff. So they show up and they're with Pharaoh, and the reason I bring all that up is those are the things I think in our own lives that we concentrate on so much, right? The how to when I go, I'm going to talk, I'm going to do this thing, and it's all these like small in betweeny kind of things before you actually go and accomplish. And afterward, you look back and you're like, I worried so much about all those small things without thinking about this big goal that we have to accomplish. There might be some sort of wisdom or lesson there, but probably too broad. So we'll
mhm.
move on. But Moses and Aaron do show up and they talk to Pharaoh and they deliver the message they were told, right?
They do. They do.
Let me bring this up here real quick. Reading from Exodus 5. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord," there's that capital Lord. So this is what
Yahweh.
Yahweh, the God of Israel, has said. Release my people so that they may hold a pilgrimage feast to me in the wilderness. Now, as far as requests go, this is not earth shattering. This is not surprising. This is not as big a deal, I think, as we might make it out to be. It's a very reasonable request. You
See,
inhaled like you were going to say something, so I paused.
yeah, because I take it more because if you go back to it when it says "release my people," and then he says after release, about to go worship God. I take it more that Pharaoh knew and understood that what Moses was saying, not just he knew what he meant, like release his people, of truly releasing them out of slavery, not going back into bondage with them.
Yeah, I think that's an assumption
Mm,
that we make, and I think, and also that may have been, when I say that's an assumption, I'm not saying you. I'm
mm,
saying that might be an assumption that Pharaoh made, but
mm,
that's not the request. And I think it's interesting you bring it up because I think that's also part of it. His expectation was they're going to leave, which
mm,
is funny because initially they thought that they were too dangerous to have around because they would rise up.
mm,
So you have to kill them off. That was the first thing that happened in the last generation. They're too dangerous to let be too powerful. So now, even if that assumption is they're going to leave, that still falls within, yeah, that's good for Egypt, right?
yeah, absolutely. Well,
So
the hope. Wouldn't Pharaoh's fear be that they leave Egypt and go join up with one of their enemies and come back? Couldn't that be a fear?
it could be, it's an
Mhm,
unstated fear. So it's interesting because it what it does is puts Pharaoh in this situation where he thinks he's got it handled, but there's no good outcome for him.
well, yeah. Either way, Pharaoh's scared, and he's in opposition of God. So so clearly he's not thinking properly. You know.
Right. So he says, let them go out on this 3-day journey to go out to the wilderness. And I think one of the reasons why I kind of hold that this was a reasonable request, he says, hey, it's a 3-day journey. We're not going that far.
Hmm.
We're going over here. We're going to do this thing. We're gonna worship Yahweh. We're gonna worship our God, and then and that's where I think this, let's go on this 3-day journey is uh is why that this sort of seems like what are you freaking out about,
Hmm. See,
right?
that's why I guess I more emphasis or focus on the whole "release my people" type of thing, where Pharaoh's again. You make a good point. It might be an assumption by Pharaoh too. It might not be what actually he was meaning, but the assumption that Pharaoh made was no. Well, they're meaning being released in good all together. But what's interesting too is how it's 3 days, right? So it's always symbolic of the number three. You'll go to the wilderness for 3 days. Jesus in the buried for 3 days. Um, yeah, I just find out you always see little connections throughout the Bible,
Yeah,
little
it's
foreshadowing.
either a numerical connection or just geography.
Yeah.
And but that 3 day, it is kind of interesting that seems to pop up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Overall, and because what's funny is that if they were going to actually go to the promised land, then you would tag on another 8 days. It would take
Hmm.
another 8 days to get there.
Hmm.
So we're going to go 3 days out. Can we go and do this? And the response is rather interesting.
So you're not telling me Pharaoh was cool with it? He didn't just say, "Yeah."
Wish he was,
He didn't give a little parting gift.
but again, it would have made for a boring story, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But Pharaoh, verse 2, who is Yahweh that I should obey him by
Yeah.
releasing Israel? So the immediate response is total arrogance.
Yep. His heart.
Uh, who is this Yahweh?
Yeah.
And it is funny that you go back. Moses is concerned that the people, the Hebrews, won't know who Yahweh is.
Yeah.
The first thing he does is he goes to Pharaoh. It's Pharaoh who doesn't know who Yahweh is. And this is a classic, and we don't understand this part today because depending on what your political stance is, you may disagree with this next statement. But today we have a pretty solid separation of church and state, quote unquote, religion and state.
Hmm.
We really do, because in the far past, in the ancient past, those two things were so intermingled that you couldn't separate them. When you would go to an official meeting, there would be priests there, and they would do rituals, and it was part of just what the government was doing. Religion was intermingled directly with government, politics, governing in general, judgments, decisions, all those different things. It was so intermingled that you couldn't separate them. All that to say, Pharaoh may be making a political statement as much as he's making a uh, theological knowledge statement. I don't know who Yahweh is, but he also might be saying in this way, in a stately manner, Yahweh has no power here,
Hmm.
because here we worship the other gods.
Yep.
So Yahweh has no presence here. I don't see him here. He's not represented here. I don't know who he is. He's non-existent
Yeah.
in
No, I
Egypt.
agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
And so it's more than just, because you could read it. I don't know who this Yahweh is, as just he's ignorant. And I don't
Hmm.
think he's so much ignorant as he doesn't care,
Hmm.
because Yahweh has no power here. That's his stance. And I think that's important. It's important to state, because the chapters that follow prove the opposite. Yahweh doesn't just have power, he is the ultimate God in all areas and all regions. It doesn't matter, because he's the creator, right?
What this also does, it sets up the stage to see where Pharaoh's heart is for the rest of the story. For him to sit there and kind of mock, it's almost like a mocking way, like, "Oh, who is the Lord? Why should I obey him? I don't know him." So again, it's showing his heart that if he doesn't acknowledge God, he doesn't recognize him. So then, when these plagues and all these things that come his way, his heart's already there of not accepting the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is that setup. We don't know much about this Pharaoh. We start to learn about this Pharaoh here.
Yeah.
Looking at the next verse, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. This is Aaron talking to Pharaoh. Right, Moses talking through Aaron to Pharaoh. The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness so we may sacrifice to our Lord, to Yahweh our God, so that he does not strike us with plague or with sword. What's interesting is they include themselves in this.
Hmm.
Sort of, it doesn't say, if you don't do this, you're going to be punished. The idea is that all of us are in trouble if you
Yeah.
don't listen to Yahweh.
He's trying to relate with them. He's trying to be like, "Hey, man, look, we got to do this for everybody." You
That's
know?
right. It's like our Yahweh has told us that he wants us to go and do this. And so, and I think that's also important too, because it's setting up this scenario that Yahweh's judgment is proper. So two things. One, Pharaoh would be punished, and all of Egypt would be punished for not releasing them, but then also the Hebrews would be punished for not obeying. It's kind of
Yep.
both those sides, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it really comes down to it, they're going to have to jet,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to lead to a different kind of skirmish, right?
Whole
But
bunch of
it's the warning. If you don't do this, then there's going to be plague and sword,
Yep.
plague and judgment, plague and destruction. The sword just stands for general destruction, which is also interesting because it's the base word. This is the root word for Horeb, which is the other name for the mountain where Moses was when this happened. Is that same root word for sword?
Makes sense.
And so it's God means business. Yahweh is not just flapping his gums. He's
He's
for real going to do this.
he's
Right?
all-consuming fire. Yeah, I mean, for Moses to see him as a in the bush of a flame of fire, he's showing it.
Absolutely. Verse 4, the king of Egypt says to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you cause the people to refrain from their work? Return to your labor. Pharaoh was thinking, the people of the land are now too many, and you are giving them rest from their labor.
I wonder if this ever happens at like an Apple factory in China.
Oh man, my iPhone's going to stop working here in a second. I keep doing that. But yeah, it's funny the answer. The answer is so disrespectful to that people, disrespectful to Yahweh. And in Pharaoh's defense, maybe he is just saying, I really don't know who Yahweh is.
Yeah, true.
So what if he's saying, like, you never brought him up before? In the hundreds of years you've been here, this has never been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But today it's an issue. And it's Moses, this crazy murdering activist who apparently for Hebrew rights is willing to kill. So no, I think you guys are just trying to get out of work.
No, I most definitely take it that he truly does not believe in Yahweh. He truly is like, I don't know him. Like, I haven't seen anything. They believe in their gods there, and they haven't heard one word, because even the Hebrews there have all kind of forgotten of Yahweh. So if the Hebrews themselves are not following or holding on to God, why would the Pharaoh have any idea of who he is?
I think you nailed it. I think that's the other indictment is you have potentially, they've done, calculations on this, it's potentially millions of Hebrews there.
Yeah.
The fact that the Egyptians and Pharaoh do not know who Yahweh is a massive failure on the Hebrews' part.
Yep.
So this idea that you've got a whole bunch of faithful people who are crying out to Yahweh, please help us, I don't think that's the case.
Mm-mm.
You got millions of people who may be crying out, but they're not crying out to Yahweh. It says that Yahweh remembered his covenant with them. They're crying out. It doesn't say that they are these faithful people who all of a sudden turn to Yahweh
Yep.
in their trouble.
Yeah.
So this is an indictment on them.
It makes you thank God that his covenant with Abraham was unconditional.
Yeah. Because then look at the character of God.
Yep.
God he's not saving people who are following him, doing what he's asked them to do, who are worshiping him.
Yep.
They may have forgotten about him.
Yep. But he made a promise. He's going to uphold to it.
So this idea of remembering the covenant, this may be when it states that Yahweh remembered the covenant, it may be actually a juxtaposition to the Israelites who seem to have forgotten
Mm-hmm.
the covenant.
Okay, yeah, because they're supposed to be blessings to the world. That was the thing he told to Abraham. You're go be a blessing to all the nations. And now clearly the Hebrews are not being a blessing. They are sitting in their own little stew. I mean, obviously they're suppressed, but it's because they're not being light or salt to the world either. They're supposed to bring Yahweh to others by their actions and imaging him.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it.
And and to be fair, they have not received the law. That's where they're going. They're going to go to Sinai to get the law. So some of these detailed things on what the nation is supposed to be and supposed to do, they don't necessarily have that command yet. However, that was the idea. At the very least, they could be faithful to
But it always goes back to the
Yahweh.
heart. It goes back to the heart, right? They may not have known that you're saying like the law, the details, but it's about the heart, where their heart for God. Like Abraham was a friend of God, so clearly, then God gave revelation to him because he was a friend of God. But clearly, the Hebrews here are not being friends of God; they are just living in their own way, not trying to follow Him to what they could. You're right; they don't have the law; they don't have any revelation like Moses gets and will bring to them, but they do have a heart posture that they could be looking to Him, knowing that He is real, knowing that holding on to the promise. Right? That's the whole idea of anything with the Israelites, and then us now with being Christians. You hold on to His promises. That's what you do as God's people.
Yeah, exactly. So in this story, you have an unfaithful people. Yahweh's talking to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Go and have them come out to worship me."
Mm-hmm.
And Pharaoh saying, "No, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
You guys are just trying to get out of your work."
Well, he's got to
Right?
build build another pyramid or something. He's got to build something. He got little, not the main ones, but a smaller one for himself in front of his lawn.
Some other ones, yeah, yeah. I mean, that goes back to the work that they were doing. The work that they were doing was menial. It was everyday kind of stuff. So they were making bricks. That was their, at least it may not be the only thing they were doing. It was the main thing they were doing.
It's just manual
Right.
labor. They're doing the grunt work, the heavy lifting.
So here we go into verse 6, where it says, "The same day Pharaoh commanded the slave masters and the foremen, or the taskmasters." That's the old King James version of that, which I like that word, the taskmasters, over the people to say, "You must no longer, or I'm sorry, you will no longer get straw." So to build bricks, to keep these together, and it was most likely the consistency of the materials that they had there. They had to have straw to hold these things together, to mix in there. And they said, "No, we're not going to give you straw." Well, then they can't accomplish their goal. So basically they said, in addition to making the bricks, you now have to go get the straw to do that. It's sort of like saying, you went to work and you have a quota of things you have to build, right? I used to work in sub-assembly at a machinery shop, so you'd have all these different things. So I can imagine if I showed up and they said, you have to maintain your quota, but we're not going to give you this one kind of bolt. And it'd be like, what?
Just making
I
your
have to go
job,
find bolts?
making your life harder. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. He's just putting the boot on the neck a little hard. Just making it uncomfortable for them.
And so they had to then go get straw, go find straw. So if it was me, I'd be like, I don't know where to get this bolt. Where am I supposed to go get this? I can go to the hardware store, but I'm not going to get enough. I need to go, where's the supplier? All that kind of thing, right? So for them, it's like, go out and go find the straw. Straw is probably a little easier to get than a very particular bolt, but they still had to go get it.
Yeah.
So I could imagine saying, like, we can't make the bricks and do that. Who do I have to then employ to go do those things if no one's going to help me?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to ask my wife and kids, like, I have to do this hard labor. Can you go gather straw? So what this might have done was actually just completely overturned how their whole life structure was.
Yeah, and you just know that not the scoffing, but the just behind closed doors are, man, this Moses and Aaron, they're talking to Pharaoh and they're making it worse for us. They just need to shut up. Like, everything was fine. We were just doing our thing, and now we got to go get our own supplies.
Yeah,
Just because
exactly.
just because Moses and Aaron are talking to Pharaoh, stop talking to him.
Yeah. Why don't
You
you
know,
get,
that's going on.
that was Pharaoh's plan too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's trying to pull. Yeah, he's trying to have the Hebrews against Moses and Aaron.
So then they would say, we retract the request. Right. Now, the reason why this is an important part of the story to bring up is, as we were saying before, a lot of times when you are going and doing the right thing, it doesn't always mean it's going to be easy. So think about Moses, think about Aaron. They're doing what they were asked to do. They did the hard part already. They went to Pharaoh and they made the statement. But what happened? It got worse. The reason they're going there is because Yahweh sent them because of the groanings of the people. They go and do this thing, and now it's worse. Now, now they're worse off than they were before. So you go to the story structure that we have. This is that if you go to the hero's journey or just to story structure sort of thing, this is the first failure. Your heroes have these fail, try, fail cycles, right? That's how stories are sort of developed. It's so that you have a story.
Yeah.
This is our hero, our heroes going to do the thing, and the first big obstacle. The first big obstacle actually might completely ruin the intended goal, right? They might not be able to go and to do the thing because if the people tell them to stop. I mean, you have a people who are unwilling to go and to do what they're supposed to do, go out into the desert or whatever. This is difficult, and I think this is one of those things that for a lot of people, and I'm just going to kind of go out on a limb a little bit. You have people who genuinely want to go and do the right thing. They want to step up and accomplish the things that they know they're called to do. They want to go and whatever that is, fill in the blank for you. If it's a hero, they want to go and they want to destroy the Death Star. They want to go and I'm trying to think of story examples. They want to get the money back from the sheriff of Nottingham. There's a certain goal that they go to achieve, and so when you start to go and to achieve that thing, you're on the path to accomplish the goal. That difficulty, especially the first one, when that first difficulty sets in, that's the test. That's the test for people to see, are you really going to go and accomplish this thing? So for us as individuals, a lot of times that's where some people just will fail. They'll just say, that's not worth it.
Well, that's the thing with anything with the Lord. Even if you do fail, you're not condemned. You get back up and you keep moving. As you see here, Moses and Aaron will continue to do it. And that's where you have a lot of people, because they're scared of failure, they won't even do it in the first place. But when you're doing something that is God's will and you're following him, even if you fail, you keep, all right, we'll do it. We're going to go again. We're going to take a different path. We're going to go a different route. You're not done. You're not condemned. You're not out just because you have one failure in one aspect or whatever. Just keep persevering, keep going through. As you'll see with Moses and Aaron here, like they don't pack up their bags like, oh well, they said no, guys, sorry, I'm going back to Midian.
This is, I think, a point where we can kind of stop for just a second. We can bring it to some real life, right?
Yeah.
And if you're here and you're able to chat, if you're driving, please don't. But if you are able to chat, is there something in your life? Is there a time? Was there a situation where you knew you had the right thing to do in front of you, but there was so much difficulty or fear of failure that you didn't do the right thing? And it's something you think about. Like, was there something for you? And if you're watching this on a replay, drop it in the comments. Was there something for you that kept you from doing that thing? Mm-hmm. Is there something that for me, those would be the situation where I look back and think there's a term for that. It's called regret.
Yeah.
I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Yep.
I didn't step up and accomplish the goal that I had. This is where stories can be really helpful, because sometimes our own examples, we look back, it's like, that wasn't that big a deal. But stories make it easier. So I always go back to Saving Private Ryan with Upham. I think one of the best displays of failure, because he's a soldier, he's supposed to be accomplishing a goal, and they're in that particular situation, and I have to do the spoiler thing just in case you haven't seen.
If you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, I don't know what you're doing in life.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But I'll put it there anyway. Upham has the opportunity. He hears that he has a friend that is a friend. There's a fellow soldier upstairs. I don't even remember if he knows who he is. He hears him struggling, and instead of going up to help, he's just frozen with fear. And so he just stands there. He's paralyzed. And I think the worst moment in that film in my opinion, is when the soldiers are walking back down and they don't even find him worthy enough to be fought. They don't touch him. They just walk right past him.
Yep.
And it has to be one of the most demoralizing things
Yep.
that I'm sure haunted that man for the rest of his life, however long it was.
Yep. Absolutely. You said it perfect. Just the regret.
Yeah. I think this is what we would really hope for. Trinity saying here, I don't fear being the odd man out to do the right thing. I teach my kids the same. And I think that's a really great attitude. And I think that also can be, it can be difficult because, especially when you throw kids in there, sometimes that fear of failure is if I try this and I fail, am I still going to be able to move forward? So there are many who don't have enough confidence, or I would say, and especially in the story that we're seeing here, do you have enough experience to understand that there are times where you need to, the only way forward is to jump forward with both feet and to place your faith in, we'd say in this story and say in our lives, it would be put your faith in Yahweh because he's trustworthy. He is able to do that. So Yahweh's already said, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Remember, he already told Moses, Pharaoh's going to say no, right? He's going to reject it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like he already knows that. So this shouldn't be a surprise, but I can imagine how demoralizing it is. You still have to go through it. You still have to hear it. You still have to have that opposition there, and you still have to move through it. And the promise was even given. Then Yahweh said, I'll show my wonders. And then they're going to be sorry,
Yeah.
and you're going to be out of there.
Yeah.
That's the promise made. But sometimes we don't have enough experience to say, I know that we can take Yahweh at his word. I know that we can take God at his word. I know that we can trust that if I jump with 2 feet, I'm going to land.
Yeah.
And that I think becomes the difficulty, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Because you're walking by faith, not by sight. You're not walking by knowns. You're going and having faith for the unknown, and that's what's scary. That's why Israel rather stay in their slavery, their bondage, because it's the known. They're scared of the unknown. Freedom is scary because it comes out of a price of responsibility. Like, like yeah, like they may be bondage or being enslaved, but they have a roof over their head. They have comfortability. They have familiarity of what they live, and the idea of them being free, which is it's obviously always better to be free, but at that cost, now it's on you. You have to now go out and do whatever. You have to take that responsibility. So you see that here, this whole situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Trinity brings up again. It's difficult, especially among your peers, who might view what you're doing as burning a bridge when you're actually trying to build a better bridge. And that's a good point too.
Yeah.
That sometimes it looks like you're intentionally trying to cut that off, right? Burn that bridge, as the example is given. What I if you look at this, the intention's not, I want to destroy this relationship that Israel has with Egypt, even though it was a terrible one at that point. That's not the point. The point is they want to move on, and even the request is they want to move on, and they just want to go and worship their God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that assumption that you brought up, I think that probably was their assumption. Once they're gone, they're not going to want to come back.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because as you read the story and you go way farther into the story, once they are actually gone and they're in the desert, what do they want to do?
Want to go back?
All they want to do is go back. So that's really funny, actually, if you think of it that way. But it's going through that difficulty. There's another example in the Bible of having to move through difficulty. And I'm not going to bring it up because you'd have to read a whole chapter. So I'm going to summarize. There's another story of the Apostle Paul. This is in Acts. So he goes to Jerusalem and he gives a report saying, "Hey, I'm going around and I'm teaching, and the Holy Spirit is coming in, and so there's amazing things that are happening." So they say, "Keep doing what you're doing." So he said, "Great." So he's going to leave, and all he experiences is difficulty at every single turn. He's going to leave, and he has a disagreement with his partner in I was going to say partner in crime, but it's partner in righteousness. but it's his companion. So he and Barnabas, they split, right? So it's, you got that situation where like, oh no. So then God brings Silas. Okay, so I got a new companion. So he starts to walk. They walk. This is the part that we just glance over it, because it just says they went from this place to this place, and they didn't hear anything from the Lord. So they leave and they travel for 500 miles. 500 miles they travel, 800 kilometers, I think it is, where without hearing anything, they're just going and they don't know where they're supposed to go. And they're just going. And so think of that difficulty. They finally get to Troas, they get to Troy, and Paul has a dream. He says, hey, the direction you're going, go the other way, go to Europe. He's like, okay.
All right.
So he goes, and guess what? He goes to the town and has great success? No. Goes to the town, he starts to teach. Everybody hates him, gets run out of town. Goes to the next town. Starts to teach, everybody hates him, gets run out of town. He goes to I think it's the third city is Thessalonica, where they try to kill him. And so he flees and he runs to, they all leave and they go to Philippi.
Yeah.
And there they try to teach, and he gets thrown in prison. So now think of all that. You lost your companion, traveled 500 miles, kicked out of a city, kicked out of a city, kicked out of a city, and now you're in jail.
It's pretty rough.
So at that point, do you go, maybe this was the wrong thing to do?
Yeah, well, that's part of the idea of picking up your the cross of shame and following Jesus. They're not going to they're not going to receive you well everywhere. They're going to be ran out of town.
And here's so the whole moral of that story, the point of that story is they were in the jail, and what are they doing? They're singing. Right? They're singing, they're talking about what they're supposed to be doing. There's a huge earthquake and all the doors fling open. The jailer comes running in and assumes everyone's escaped. And if you're a jailer during the times of Rome, if your prisoners escaped, they were going to kill you. You would die. The punishment was death. But if he commits suicide, according to the law, his family would still get their inheritance.
Oh,
so he's ready to off himself.
Yeah.
But before he can, Paul's like, hey, don't worry about it. We're all still here.
Yeah, you're just sitting there whistling.
They're all still there. Why are they all still there? Because I think because Paul knew that if they left, it'd be terrible, right?
Yeah, be blood on their hands.
So then this jailer's like, earthquake, these things. I've been hearing you sing it all night. This stuff happens. What do I have to do? Clearly, you've got something here. What do I have to do? That man, that jailer becomes one of the kernel, the nugget that starts that church there. Yeah. So for all that, so imagine that. What if for all of his travels, his difficulties, the oppression, the persecution, all these different things, the whole goal was for God to save that man? How in the world would he have been able to go, even if God said, you need to go to this city and you need to go talk to this man? It probably still would have been difficult, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole thing is that the opposition and difficulty and things don't work out are not necessarily proof that you're doing the wrong thing. Sometimes it means you're going the right way.
Yeah, any type of adversity, you need adversity for growth. That's just how life works with everything, not just the spiritual, but the physical and everything.
Mike, good to see you, man. Glad you're here.
How about Mike?
And just accolades for Mike. And back for Trinity. In the church today, they don't emphasize the importance of the Holy Ghost. In Acts, when Paul asks if they know the Holy Ghost, and they say no, he lays hands on them and the Holy Spirit enters. Yes. And then they prophesy. There was a lot going on in the early church to this gap. Jesus is gone. He's not here. How do we know that this is continuation of what's going on? And so these manifestations of the Spirit, this time where things were taking place, it was very clear that the apostles were that next generation. It's like, okay, now there's this continuation, this handoff from Jesus to the church to those men to move that direction to where we know that this is the right way to go. That's the real witnessing there. By actions, not words. That guy wanted his life changed through actions. Yes, but I would also say this, Mike. If we're talking about the jailer, this is after Paul had already preached in the city. This is after Paul was in the prison and they were singing for hours. That then the actions meant something. So I think it does have to be both. Absolutely, but those actions were proof that what they said they really meant.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And so if you lose that and it's just words, it becomes hollow, right? So hollow. Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, Holy Ghost is very important. Absolutely, it's essential for what is going on, what's being accomplished. So you go back to Moses. How do Moses and Aaron know that what they're doing is right? They have to trust in what Yahweh has already told them.
Have to cling to it.
We're getting close to the end of this here. Anything else to add, Chuman? I talked for a bit there.
No, I just think it's great application for everyone out there that adversity is not bad. It sucks in the moment. It really sucks. But I mean, that's how you grow. I mean, working out, it sucks to work out. It sucks to go on a run. It sucks to lift weights. And it hurts. But the adversity is beneficial for you in the long run. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of just how life goes. It's just how this reality is, how God has created it, and we don't have a say in. I mean, if you don't like it, I'm sorry, none of us like that part. But the sooner you accept that, the easier it is to then just go forth and break through it, like Moses and Aaron are breaking through and going through it. They're not trying to fight it or resisting it. A good application is the idea of when Jesus draws us together. The term is like a dragnet, like how he did with the fish, and that's how he draws us in to him. And you have two options. You can be the fish that is going with the net when he's drawing you in, like obviously you can be bumping into him, like, all right, well, he's taking me this way. Or you can be that fish just going against the net, just fighting it, and God's just pulling you in, and you're just resisting at every way. And there's so many people. We've all been there. We've all done it. There's a lot of different accounts that people just resisting. I mean, look at how many biblical characters is resisting, but then God just like, nope, I'm drawing you in. So don't think that adversity is bad and then give up right away. God does not reward quitters and the weak. He wants you to persevere, but has nothing. All you have to do is to be willing. It's His power, it's His will inside of you. You just need to be a willing vessel.
Bold but true statement there. You're talking about lifting and working out. I just got to bring in here.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, look, yeah.
It's a hammer.
A hammer. There you go. 15-pound. Oh yeah. Right.
That's a nice little.
Heck yeah.
Little thing. When I'm working and on Zoom meetings, I'll turn my camera off and I'll be.
You can work. Yeah, you can get
working the camera.
That's how you warm up in 30-degree temperature.
Yeah, for real. Mike says, I totally understand. We quickly can use words, but meeting needs and actions shows it's real. Absolutely. You have to back it up, right? And so going back to this time with Moses and Aaron, you could also say, like, there were people they didn't know who Yahweh is. So what Yahweh does in his actions, what he actually accomplishes, they now know who Yahweh is through that. Pharaoh didn't know him before. You will now.
Yep.
And even to the small degree, Moses and Aaron saying, no, we need to go because Yahweh said we need to go. Them not backing down, backing up their own words and statements with actions is what's really going to continue to drive the story. And you can imagine after the first plague, the second plague, the third plague, you probably could see that confidence with Aaron and Moses like building, right? There's rejection, but then you can see God's power. And so then I'm sure that had a big impact on the rest of the Israelites to where you get to the 10th plague and the confidence that Yahweh is going to do what he says he's going to do has to be through the roof.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think you're totally right, Mike. That I think is one of the major lessons that we need to is you can have words all day, but unless you back it up with what you're doing, is it real?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, man.
So to finish this out here, Verse 20. When they went out from Pharaoh, they encountered Moses and Aaron standing to meet them. And they said, "May the Lord, or Yahweh, look on you and judge, because you have made us stink in the opinion of Pharaoh and his servants,
Stinketh.
so that you have given them an excuse to kill us." So the Israelites were not happy with what was going on.
Nope. That dang Moses and Aaron, man, they're troublemakers.
So
They
if you had
stink.
to find, so if you had to find a situation, a nice little cliffhanger before the next episode,
It's a
that's
good
it
one.
there. Moses and Aaron make their
It's like the
declaration.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the end of the episode where they walk back to the Israelites and they're like looking at them like with like bats and like it's like mad at them like
Yeah. They're snapping, walking through
yep.
the street.
They're like
Oh my.
all angry. Like look what
Yeah.
you made us. Look what happened. You made it worse.
Look what you did.
Yeah.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
If for
Just
some
watch
reason
the
they
whole
like
lot.
if for some reason they're like a New York accent now like
Yeah. Yeah, they're all tough in the streets. It's gangs in New York. And
yeah
they walk in there like, "What are you doing?" I thought, and who knows? It doesn't, again, they don't say what happened when Moses and Aaron show up. They just show up there. Did they wander through the areas? But hey, we're going to go. We're going to take care of it. We're going to talk to Pharaoh. Don't worry about it.
yeah. No, you have no idea.
And then the next thing you know, now they've got tons more work. Yeah. So
Good stuff, man.
we're at that place, right? Swell of the symphony goes black. Roll credits. Cliffhanger for next time. What's going to happen? Is it going to work? Are they going to do what they're going to do? We already know. I mean, we already know. But there's tension there, and I'd like to say that next week we'll find out, but we're not going to find out next week.
No,
because next week is Christmas.
Yeah.
And we're going to do special episode. We're going to post it. It's not going to be very long. If you want to jump in, we'll try and keep it shorter, but next week is Christmas. So we'll have a little bit of a Christmas message and we'll jump back into this story after that. So any last words, Chuman? Not that you're dying, but we're ending the stream.
No, just persevere, endure through the hardships. As long as you're following following the Lord, obviously if you're following your own way and you're putting yourself in situations, that's not gonna. I'm not telling you. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
but
there's lots of Sorry, I keep stepping on you.
Oh no, you're good. There's just a lot of things that you do where you might think it's God's will, but it's really not, and so that's not going to get you anywhere. But as long as you are following God, just keep on going through it. Don't be scared of failure. He'll pick you up. You will not be condemned.
Yeah. There's lots of proverbs that will talk about the fool in his way and the folly that he thinks he's doing the right thing, but in the end it leads to destruction. And yeah, as long as you know that you're following the correct way, you'll have success even if there's opposition. So then the question is, how do I know? Well, that's kind of why we're going through all these stories. It's to kind of build up an understanding of what it means to see the right way to go. So anyway, That's what we got for this week.
Excited
for all you out there, I hope that you have a good week. Take care.
Absolutely.
And as we say around here, Pilgrim on, my friends.
God bless.
We'll see you out there.